Hey, what's going on, everybody? Happy 4th of July. Just threw the stream up, so I'm sorry for those who were actually on at 2 o'clock. I was busy doing this background you see here, and I ran into some issues. So I like new background. It's loud, keep you awake, so you don't fall asleep on me. We got a good show today. We got about 20 or so people on the wait list, and it's been over a week that I did one of these live streams. So I'm going to do one today, and I'm probably going to do one in a few days and catch up. So if you do see this, and this is a new stream for you, the link is in the description. It's a job form. Just go ahead and submit your based on down the line, like this gentleman, and we'll give you also a little box to fill out what you need help with, what your current issues are, your work history in terms of your golf, how many lessons you've taken, all that stuff, just so it makes it easier for me to diagnose. So I've hopefully these people are on. If not, they get a nice little surprise when they get back. Okay, first up we have his name is John. I'm just going to say first names, not last names. And if you have a question anytime, just go ahead and shoot it. Happy Independence Day from Canada. Yes, thank you so much. Happy Independence Day to you too. Although it's not your it's not your independence. So let's take a look here. John, we got 4 years playing, some lessons sprinkled here and there, different instructors, lots of YouTube golf like Dana Dahlquist, Dr. Kwan, Be Better Golf, and Milo Lines. Range of motion seems fine in terms of hips and body turn, but my wrist, question mark, I don't know what that means. And especially my shoulders seems extremely limited. Shoulders I struggle with the external rotation. I've had 2 shoulder surgeries on my right shoulder. Okay. All right, that might help explain some stuff. Current ball flight is a cut, big miss or big block cut, slice, and or hooks. So jabroni and Hammicamp don't like this. Play tennis court up. Feel like as if I'm stuck and pushing off my right foot the entire swing and little activation on my left side. Okay, let's take a look here. We got people from Saving for Frustrating. Thank you, Vertical. Appreciate you. I need to go to Australia. Evening 20, what minefields have you got for us tonight? Oh, yeah, we got a bunch of them coming up. Good looking swing. Yes, he does have a good looking swing. Strong gentleman. Looks like he's a big guy. All right, so let's take a look. We know we got a right shoulder surgery issue. Great job with the camera work, by the way. This is perfect. And we got to get OG on the screen right away. Look at this. You guys see that one? Is that big enough? Should be. And upper plane line, back brace line. Let's take a look at what goes on in the swing. Let's do right side. Let's zoom in a little bit here too. That looks a little bit too far. And let's draw some right brace line. Let's just take a look at the overall action. We know that right shoulder has got some issues. A little overextension. Yep, a little steep coming out of our posture. Okay, let's do this. Let's sync these up. That's a bad thing about shows like this. You can't really edit it. So you have to go through all this with me. There's contact. Boom, boom, and contact. Just so we get them all the same. Okay. What? Look at this. Independence Day blues here. There we go. All right. Let's go to impact now. Let's see. Okay, definitely lost some posture. We see that right hand trying to save the golf swing. So there is some disconnection issues here. Weight distribution seems okay. It seems a little bit too stuck and stacked on that left side here. Ball position, you know, anytime you get that ball position outside the left side, so you look at this ball position here, you know, that's depending on the way you turn into it and tilt. Anytime that ball position is favoring the left side, you capture that path going left. So when you have a leftward path and you leave the club face, you know, anywhere open to that path, that's where your big blocks, which give me your big slices, come into. So I can see why you do miss this specifically with that path being pretty steep here. With that shoulder surgery, though, I don't know how it's affecting the way your right arm moves this way. I don't know if you have any range of motion issues. Looking from the top, though, you can see here, you know, ideally, you know, you get that right elbow or that right forearm to pull back. So it's like this instead of being, so you get a lot more backward here, and what they'll do is it'll help drop the club in the slot. So I don't know if that shoulder surgery that you mentioned is prohibiting, but in terms of posture, you can see the only way you get in that club in the slot is we start losing our posture here. We start standing up to help that club fall in the slot. So anytime you stand up in your posture, excuse me, the club will want to veer perpendicular to that posture. So for those of you who are fairly steep, I see a lot of this to try and hit the golf ball, where we stand up to drop the club to give it a fighting chance to come inside to out. So it's hard because of that shoulder injury. I don't know if that shoulder surgery is preventing you from getting your right arm to pull back, like when you throw on a pitch. And if it is limiting that, then your only way to hit this is to lose your posture and stand up to help you, stay at least somewhat in the plane, but because those you get a little too long here. So if this was me, I mean, we're gonna look at that right shoulder tilting just to make sure. Let's do this in a different color. Sorry, my phone's going crazy. Okay, so right shoulder, we can see a lot of right shoulder tilt, so this could also start to throw things off. So center of that tilting, we can see that center of the tilting is way out. So if you wanted to match this up, you could see your centeredness of your spine is basically almost setting up like an iron. So this is almost an iron setup, which will promote steepness, which now all of a sudden you have to lose posture to get that club inside. So I would prefer, if you want that ball position out to here, you want to you're trying to get the tilt, but your weighting is also so you're tilting, but then your weighting is reaching out for that golf ball too. So it's not necessarily like you're opening up your shoulders to get to that golf ball position, because you can see your shoulders are pretty level and they're facing fairly straight to the rest of your body. It's not like we have an open shoulder position. So I would say, the tilting's fine, but just get the weighting more back. So at least, we're gonna try and look at this here. Your spine angle should probably be matching that green line. Right now, you can see it's this yellow line, it's kind of more up. So get a little bit of back, feel like the weight's moving back to adjust your spine angle, because spine angle here, you can see that spine angle. Obviously, we're going to increase the spine angle if we sequence correctly, but if we don't sequence correctly, we're going to be very steep. So, John, I'm glad you're on. So, John, I don't know how much of that you caught, but this is your spine angle. So this is almost like an iron setup. And that forward ball position, just let me know if you heard this. I don't want to repeat myself, but that forward ball position, it's okay, but we need your spine angle to at least match that forward ball position. So you want it to be more like here. Tilting is fine. Obviously with the driver, want to tilt more, try and swing more up. But with this much tilt and not your forward, your centeredness is too forward, you're going to have a downward trajectory like an iron. But other than that, John, when we go to the top of your swing, since you missed it, right here, we're steep. But what I'm looking at is this position here with your right arm. I know you said you got some shoulder issues with that right surgery. Is it preventing you from getting more of that position where you can pull the right arm back, the right hand back? Because if you can pull that right hand back, that'll definitely alleviate some of this. So that right hand's back here, or is the shoulder surgery, are you stuck? You can't rotate it back. Because if you can't rotate it back, you run into some issues. And the only reason you can put that club into the slot is you start standing up and losing your posture. So it's reliant upon itself right now, but I don't know if that's because of your shoulders. So if you can just let me know if your shoulders, so I can point you in the right direction. I don't want you to start working on that if you physically can't do that, which is the key. While you let me know, let me take a look. We got Tony. What is a good drill to get that trail elbow working that you mentioned? Um, the skipping the stones is one that you want to visualize. If you want to skip stones, but I think it's more range of motion issues. So you have to find out first if you physically are tight in that, because if you can't physically move back there, you got to do some stretches. And some things I have worked on with some older students of mine is we get a tennis ball and we put the tennis ball against the wall and we kind of lean into it, where the door frame is. So you put the tennis ball on the outside of the door frame and you lean into it, so you get some pushing back there, and then you slowly roll a tennis ball up, 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 and then push a little bit more, and push it up, and then a little bit more, and then you wanna try and lean into it this way. So, you know, loosening it up, first of all, check that, and then from there, you see you can, there's no problems, then, this motion, lead with the elbow, think about rotation, but the key is why is it moving out? You have to look at that because you can think about this all day long, but is your arm moving out because you're disconnected? I don't wanna give you like a Band-Aid for the actual move because that move could be a reason. It could be a deeper move that we're missing that requires you to do that. So just I think the best thing to do, who asked me that? Al is I don't know if he sent me a video. Send me a video, I can take a look at your swing. Not sure if I can rotate it back, but how do I know for sure? Stand up right now if you can, and then just I'm gonna do it this way. Obviously, you don't have to, but just hold everything out in front of you like this, and then from here, don't move your chest or anything, just pull your hand back and see how much you can pull it back. Now, if you can pull it back, so here is where we are. If I pull it back, I should be able to get 30 to 40 degrees, which is okay. If I can pull it back and all of a sudden it just locks here, you've got some issues. So just give that a try real quick. It could be a lack of external rotation. Yeah, totally. So we're checking that right now. No problem, man. Just let me know if you need to submit your swing. The link is down below. So while he's checking that, address changes can definitely help this. Lean back so we can get that spine angle to swing more up. From the top of the swing, here's the spine angle. We get to the top and we get that move, but then on the way through, we can see this extra bit of motion back here. All of a sudden we're still pointing down. So we have to do, a lot of this hip thrusting and the upper body falling back to try and get that spine angle to reach back. And he does, this is definitely an iron move. I mean, look at this. We're leading with the shoulder as opposed to just hanging back and swinging or around our hanging back. And then we can, come from a little shallower angle. So you do a little bit of catch up here because the centeredness of your chest is just behind the golf ball. It should be a little bit more back. And then your hands or arms have to kind of throw to catch up to the golf ball. We can see that earlier follow through with the hands. But a lot of this is also, that overextension on the way back. So John, let's see. I can't even get past my head. Okay, yeah. So, for somebody like that has that big of a range of motion issue, you definitely want to change your setup. I mean, if you want to move this ball position back so it doesn't feel like you're reaching for it so much, that's okay. But try it first with this ball position here, and then just feel like your whole upper body is shifting back. So this center of your chest, pull it back to like right over here. And all that's going to do is it's now going to change your spine angle to match that, right? And the goal for this is now everything is pointing up. So the spine angle is pointing up, the golf club is pointing up. Everything's promoting an upward strike. But right now you're promoting more of a neutral strike, kind of like an iron. So first start with that. If you hit a couple of these and you hit it more to the right, that means that golf ball's too far out in front of you and the path is always left. And that's going to be some issues at contact if your face is remotely open to that path. So start with that. Okay, John, hope that helps you. Let's see who's next. This is where it gets tricky now. So let's see. We got Ted coming up. Hopefully Ted's on. Let me just pull up his. Okay, while those are downloading. 1 and 2. Let me just delete these ones. Hope everybody's going good. All right. So here's Ted. Let me pull up his video. Let's play it while I go over his notes. And Ted, if you're on, just let me know. Okay, Ted, hi. These swings are of my 13-year-old son. Okay, good. He's been playing for a few years and taking lessons from a few different instructors. He has a tendency to jump and flip his hands at impact. Typical miss, weak fake to the right, or sometimes a straight pull to the left. Currently trying to work on keeping his right heel down to prevent jumping and maintaining posture with the body rotating more than his hands. I'm not sure if it's a good idea to try and stop the natural tendency or in the right path. Okay. All right. Let's take a look. We see that jump. I don't mind a jump. Just depends on why that's jumping. Okay, let's take a look at it a little bit slower. Yeah, it's tough with juniors because their body changes so much so fast that their swing's always gonna have a basic DNA structure, but it's gonna evolve a lot. So the key things with juniors is you always wanna just focus on fundamentals, specifically their fundamentals, because fundamentals shift with everybody. Everybody's ball position is different. The one thing I do see is that forward press, we do have to let go of that angle a lot earlier, but we do a pretty good job staying centered. Gets the club on play pretty nicely. I think that's a good move. I mean, you can tighten it up a little bit, you can tighten up the setup, but, I mean, look at that club. That's a pretty good move. It is a little risky. Alright, let's take a look. What software are you using? We'd love to try with more swing. This is, Swing Catalyst, so if you wanna check it out, swingcatalyst.com. I guess that's their website. I'm not pushing anything. I'm not branded or anything like that, but just give it a try if you wanna use it. Let's see if we can sync this up a little bit. But so far, I really like that swing. I think part of this is just letting him evolve, but just making sure that those that ball position is promoting stuff. We're not gonna set him up for injuries later. Alright, let's take a look here. Alright. He does a good job. I mean, he's the thing I'm looking for is, yeah, his body moves kind of all over the place, but if you take a look at the right side of the screen, I mean, just look what happens to his plane work and his club positions, and is it worth just, like, changing stuff just to change it, to make it look prettier? Shoulder tilt doing fine, look at that shoulder tilt. Look at that, he's on that lower plane line, gets that top plane line, club face is tiny bit closed, drops it in parallel. He loses a little bit, posture jumps up, but, he's timing that flip, and you can see there is definitely the flip because the escape pattern is much lower. So there is a tiny bit of flip going on there. So it all depends on his misses and how wild are his misses. And, posture loss, some of this could be set up, some of it could just be, not strong in the core yet because he's a little bit younger. It's not too bad. Okay, let's go left side real quick. That forward press worries me a little bit. Let's see if we can zoom in too, because this is a little bit far. Hopefully that's better for you guys. Okay, we'll stay stacked left side. So you're gonna carry that angle over. That's hard to carry over. He does a pretty good job. I mean, for what it is, we can see that from the thing I'm worried about for presses is how efficiently can he carry that angle over. And as he strikes it, he gets right there. He's still carrying a pretty good angle. It's not like he's losing it completely. That ball position is a little bit too far back for his setup, but he doesn't flick at it. I mean, right there, he's still striking down. He's carrying some forward shaft lean. It's not textbook, but, who cares as long as he can hit it consistently. So I guess the question I have with anybody, specifically with parents and kids is, A, what is your goal for golf? Are you just out here to, enjoy your time? Are you trying to be competitive? Are you looking to, get in the AJGA rankings? Or are you just looking to play, a couple years in high school? Are you trying to go collegiate? I mean, all these questions really change, what you should do. But it all comes down to your misses. Like, how well do you hit the ball? How well do you miss it? What is your miss? Is it double-sided? Does it cost you strokes? If it costs you strokes, then we have to look at, what could cause that. Just off the eyeball, I think it's a pretty good swing. There is a little bit of tendencies to maybe hit it thin and heavy. I see with that ball position and forward press, but the left side of the screen, your body's staying pretty relatively centered. You're not shifting all over the place. You carry that angle over pretty well. I would say maybe the long irons, if you carry this angle, it might be a little bit challenge. And standing up to throw would be your attempt at adding loft to the club because you de-loft it so much. But it's really, I mean, with kids, I'm really careful with kids to give them too much information just because I don't want to ruin what their goals are. So if you do send me kids' video, please just put more info, like what your goal is in terms of, your career. Is this a PGA Tour bound aspiring professional, or is this just a that wants to play golf with his dad? But I wouldn't change much. I would if you want to start looking at something, specifically with the longer irons, you might not need that much floor press just because you do off the club and you're not strong enough to have any spin loft. I don't believe speed would permit you to have that much floor press to generate the spin loft you need. Um, but other than that, I mean, centeredness is good. Your setup looks pretty good. The weighting is fighting, but it's hard to tell if it's because you're not strong enough yet to control your weighting. But other than that, just focus on what you're focusing on fundamental wise. Ball position, alignments. Two biggest things for juniors. Once you get those two down, just let them evolve. Make sure the ball position always stays within that certain boundary. If you see it getting too far back, stop it, move it back to where it needs to be somewhere, worst case, kind of in the middle. But you're also looking at this tilting relationship. So there's the tilting, there's the center of the tilt. You can see the hands are behind that center. So you're creating an enormous amount of forward press relative to your tilting. And when you get that impact, you're gonna have to find some ways to cancel these two out. And really the only way to cancel this out is to get a severe forward lean, kind of like a Milo line, to just strike down into it, but your spin loft is not quite there yet. But I hope that helps you. I don't know if it did help you. If you need any other information, just leave a comment. I'll help you out. All right, let's delete this one. Let's see who is next. And the great thing about this new format is I've never seen these when I upload them. And this one's only one video. So let's hope it's both of them in one video. Okay, it's a big video. Okay, it's uploaded. Let's put it in. Let's change this to single recording. Hit play. Let's zoom in while I read. All right, what's going on with that camera? Is it an earthquake or something? Okay, this is Adam. So Adam, if you're on, let me know. From UK, it looks like. So no earthquakes there, I think. Thanks for doing your time minutes, no problem. Currently play off at 3, but I used to be a +1. 2 kids now and not much time to play, but my game isn't as good now because I'm missing too many greens down to my poor iron play. This is a pull or a weak fade. Prefer to fade the ball, and I hate losing the ball after the hook. Yep. Strongest part of the game is driving, and I'm putting more accurate with my driver than my mid irons. I had nothing but fade with my driver and perfect. So path is excessively around -6 out to in. This is the way I've always swung the club. Short irons tend to miss more left, we do to the left. I'm gonna get in the fade curve that I can get with mid iron. Miss more left, so obviously with a outside in motion, if you square the club face relative to that path, it's gonna be pulls all day long. So that could be just your regular shot shape, like you said. I suffer from the same thing. I have a slight outside in, I just pull everything. Let's take a look now. I wish we had a face on because the face on can really help see ball position, and I'm not sure how much we can use the lines with this camera moving around, but we'll try our best. Let's take a look here. Get some red going on here for 4th of July, red, white. We don't have white. Is that big enough? No, let's go bigger. Alright, hopefully this is bigger. There we go. Okay, so a +1 at 1 point, down to a 3. No mention of anything, physical limitations. Left shoulder comes up a little long, and there's that steepness. Losing some posture, throwing out there. Okay, so this is probably a very, very good timing player. Someone that can time all these moving parts. So there's nothing wrong with these moving parts if you can time it. Okay, so you can kinda see what's happening here. Left shoulder's coming up, so we're losing out, tilting. Uh, Typically, when your left shoulder comes up, you start losing that connection with the core because when you turn and you raise your left shoulder, you can keep turning and turning until you can't turn anymore, but all of a sudden your hands are too far back. So we have some disconnection issues. We see the club fanning open as well. So anytime you start fanning the club open and disconnecting at the top, you can just go back for days. There's no real, stretching your muscles to hold you in your posture. So we're dealing with that first of all, but it seems like he was able to deal with it pretty good just because he got down to a low handicap. We see that club face does go far back and probably fairly open. You can see it there. There's the club face here. It's open relative to his left forearm. And once it's disconnected, if you disconnect your arms all the way back to here and you immediately do any sort of rotation, all of a sudden your hands are going to be moving out to the right away because they're behind the rotation of your shoulders. So it's a little bit easier if you keep things out in front of your shoulders because as you turn and tilt, your hands can just, drop down naturally and then be in the slot. But because they're so disconnected, any move this way, it's going to be challenging. So if you do the triangle check from here, just go right there. So we're going to do, let's do the triangle check in different color. Let's go yellow. There's a triangle. We're going to take a look at the triangle check. Okay, yeah, so we can see it's on that right or our view right side of that triangle. And then we stand up slightly to get that club down in. So, yeah, we do lose posture here. This is tough because it's he's going through what you would go through, to maintain such a good handicap at that level. What was he? Was it plus? It used to be a +1. So to maintain a +1 handicap, I'm gonna imagine his swing hasn't evolved much. It's probably the same. With all these little tiny moving parts, you probably have to play quite a bit and practice quite a bit to maintain it, unless you have just godlike talent, which most of us don't in terms of hand-eye coordination. So anytime, life, you have to change priorities, you got kids now, you're not able to practice and play much. Obviously, with that many moving parts, it's gonna be a little bit harder to time, than somebody that practices more. So there's 2 things you can do with this type of player. You can just say, "Hey, look, this is just how it's gonna be. Unless you can practice a play like you used to, it's probably not gonna change much." If you wanted to change anything, because all these moving parts are reliant upon themselves to make your swing successful at that level with the amount of time that you're playing practice, you're gonna have to changing one thing is gonna change the whole dynamics of your golf swing. It's like a deck of cards or dominoes. You change one thing, the whole sequencing gets thrown off. But if this was me and him working after that hour-long explanation, I'd say, "Look, your goal is probably to get these things a little bit tighter. If you wanna get them a little bit tighter, we're gonna have to tighten your swing up. That's just how it is. If you wanna control, you need less moving parts. So there's less timing, so you don't have to practice as much. But in order to change that, it's gonna take quite a bit of practice to change it. So if you can't practice because of your life now anyway, how are you gonna find time to practice to change your swing so it becomes easy in the long run? So it's a double-edged sword. So that's the question I would have for him. But let's say in a perfect world, he's got enough time to practice this move. And it seems like I don't know if that's his house. If it is, that's a great looking yard he's got and and a nice little uh, hitting bay. But if this was me and him, say, "Okay, look, we're gonna give you 6 months. What we're gonna work on, depending on your range of motions, is that setup looks pretty good. The setup looks fairly neutral. This first part of the takeaway, this fanning the club open and also losing your shoulder tilt, you're kinda going in opposite directions, so you're gonna have to close them up somehow, and when you disconnect this way, you're gonna have to reconnect this way, and when you reconnect this way, that's where steepness comes in. So we gotta figure out how do we get you to not reconnect. It's either not reconnect, now you're gonna hit them chunky, or don't disconnect on the way back. So, first thing I would be working is get the left shoulder to be more perpendicular to that spine angle. That means that left shoulder is gonna be working more down. In essence, that hands won't be above the lower plane line, they will be at that lower plane line. Next week, get this club head to veer with them so they're turning more in one piece, and by doing that, you're gonna lock your whole left side. Your whole left side will not be able to turn and as much as you do now, and secondary, we eliminate the turn, the rolling of the forearms won't allow you to go so far back, so we're gonna tighten things up, so the backswing will look lengthwise, you can see there's the turn. Lengthwise, that's basically where the hands would be stopping. So you take a look at all this that we're eliminating, that club head is moving pretty significantly. We don't see a lot of body movement. So there's all that disconnection. Plus, we've also done this on the way back. So now we have to reconnect and throw our hands back out in front, which gives you a lot of timing oriented things. So first move is left shoulder down, get the club to be close to the hands and that midway checkpoint. You'll probably feel a lot of stretch on the left side. Good. That's what you want. You want stretch. You don't want to have no stretch. So the stretching, the elasticity of the muscles will start to pull and stretch, and that holds you in your posture, number one. Number two is when your muscles pull out, when you contract them, they can now create more horsepower instead of you having to throw things. It just works a little bit more efficiently. So it will be tighter, it'll be shorter, and it'll be more controlled. Now, the question is, do you wanna go down that avenue, or are you just gonna say, "Look, I have, wife, I've got kids, I've got families, I've got other priorities. Let me just deal with what I have now." That's up to you. Now, if you wanna do a little bit of both, maybe don't get the left shoulder so extreme, maybe just reduce it a little bit, and then don't roll it so much, reduce it a little bit, and work your way that way. There's a couple ways you can do this, but based on what I read, that's a big decision you're gonna have to make, so hope that helps you. Let me see who is next. Let's delete this. Alright. That's our 3rd one. I gotta make sure I don't do the same one. Yeah, that's Adam. Okay. Next up, we have Jason. Jason, if you're on, let me see if there's any questions here. What's this one? Thought you said in the private video not to shallow irons. It really depends on who you are, depends on what the issues are in your ball flights. If you have somebody that is pulling a lot and they wanna get rid of the pulls and they're physically capable to get a little bit more shallower, it's okay. Now, I would say don't follow the trend for shallowing irons. There's nothing wrong with a path that's steep, that's as long as it's repeatable and it's what you're looking for, and it's also your misses. Everything's your misses. So if you have a miss where you are steep with the irons and you're chunking them and hitting them thin, and you're pulling them and you're rope hooking them and occasionally blocking them because you can't control what's happening down at impact, okay, we might have to look at, is that caused by your plane? Do we need to get that plane a little bit more shallower? What I'm going against is getting the club so shallow, like you see these guys with wedges. How are you going to hit down on the golf ball when that club is on that lower plane line immediately? It's really hard. You have to all of a sudden tilt your body more, and we just don't have the bodies for that. So hopefully that makes sense to you. And wedges, yes. Let's see here. We got download, download. Takes a little longer to download it this way, but it's a lot easier on my end here. Okay, we got Jason. Jason's videos are popping up right now. All right, here's Jason. Let's go back into 2 screens. Boom and boom. Hit play. Man, oh, is this another recording of the screen? We got a little bit of bumping around. Okay, Jason, frequent driving range once every 2 weeks. Don't get to play as much as due to raising kids. Okay, probably 18 handicap. Playing enough for 30 years recreationally with either self-taught or online internet lessons and a few paid. Driver swing speed 115, have speed, but a tendency to learn rotation, swing, mile lines, Riley Andrews. Okay, we have to look at to see what's going on there. Think overswings per halves and a bit. Recent instructor had me do alignment rod drills, extension and club, and small swings, attempting not to hot left side to promote a rotation swing versus me throwing it. Okay, I see what he's saying. Miss normally is out to in, slightly pull over the top. All right, sounds like the usual issues. I don't see much out in there. It's a little long, but you still do a pretty good job. All right, take a look at the left side. That's some good swing. I'm not sure how big you are. You look like a strong guy. So, do we need all that rotation? That's my one question. So, let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this. Let's make sure we're set up decently. Okay, could be the camera angle there, but and with this camera moving around, I have to just guess on a couple of these. Okay, same sort of thing. Not quite getting that left shoulder down. Hands are getting high and long. Okay, let's just sync these up real quick. Make it a little bit easier right at impact so we can talk about both. Ta-da-da. Thank God nobody has glitched the system yet. Girls get one video that somehow finds a way to glitch and jump all the way around. Right there. Perfect. Look at that. We got the perfect impact position. All right. I'll tell you what, this is a pretty good swing too. You know, you are gonna be a little bit steeper from that top position. And I don't know if this is the camera angle, but you see you suffer from out to in. Now, I don't really see out to in. I see the hand path going slightly left, but you offset it pretty well. Your shoulder tilt is increasing nicely. So we take a look at the shoulder tilting. See that angle here, 57. Let's go to the top. You do a really good job of tilting with that. 30, so 27. So you are increasing your tilting a little bit more than what you need. So it looks like the tilting's trying to overwork. Hey, Tony, love what you do for the game. I'm golf sharing your knowledge for free. I find your videos incredibly insightful and joyous. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, these live streams aren't as clean as you can probably tell, just because it's on the fly and I have to upload and download. So there's some dead time. So apologize about that. And sometimes I get quiet in my head when I'm looking at this stuff, just so I can go through my thought process. But I appreciate your patience. See, post up on the right leg more and good hand path. Yeah, I see the hand path is pretty good. I say that there's a slight, you know, depending on how tall you are and what iron is. Does this say what iron is? I don't know, because you're putting a lot of pressure on yourself to maintain this shoulder tilt, right? So that's a pretty significant shoulder tilt to maintain. And when you need a lot of shoulder tilting to just to maintain your swing, and you look like a bigger guy, I don't know how tall you are, that's gonna put some pressure on your back. So you have learned to kind of let go of that some of that shoulder tilting. When you let go of that some of that shoulder tilting there, so we've lost a little bit of this angle. That's gonna, again, play havoc with this disconnection. So we're gonna have to reconnect this. But now, because our right shoulder is lower than when it started in relation to the tilting, we are gonna have more tilting as we turn in, just naturally because it's lower. So that's why we see that, extension of 25 to 27 degrees of tilting is because it's changed from the starting position to the top. So we're doing a little bit of this rocking motion going on. And I can see where that can cause some heaviness, some thinness. Your path is definitely gonna be moving more out to the right with the excessive tilt. Um, so that's an in to out path. I just don't see an out to in unless this was a fluke swing. Um, and you do have to kind of close it at the very end because if you're accentuating your tilt and your hand path is moving right relative to everything else, you're gonna have to kind of throw your hands at the very end. And we can see that the hands do outrace on the right side here, right there. They start to outrace themselves. So there's the tilting, there's the center of the tilt, and you've already struck the golf ball. Next frame, you can see the club is kind of caught in between frames, but the club head moved past that centeredness at that checkpoint. If you were more body driven, if you didn't have to rely on your hands that last second catch up, we would see more of a closer connection at that point. But it has to do also as well with your ball position relative to the way your body moves. And I think this is kind of crooked. So I think the ball position is more here because the ground is shooting up. And I don't think we're standing on a huge mound. So I'm assuming that's where the ball position is. So the ball position does look a little bit too far back, and you get that forward press relative to that ball position. And now the center of the body has to figure out a way. I'm ahead of the golf ball, maybe too much with a forward press. I'm going to dig straight to the ground, so we're going to have to do some compensations. So we see the movement back. We see the centeredness caught up to the golf ball, even though it's slightly a little bit more forward. And now when we come through, we get that lean. Now our centeredness is returning ahead of where it started. So look how far ahead your centeredness of your circle is, and plus your tilting is more down. So this tilting, that centeredness is out here. That's where the longest point of that circle is. But then your center of your chest is, if this was on that ground, because the ground is here, center of the chest is actually more ahead of that. So this is the ground. Center of the chest would be right there. So we can see how everything is moving too far left. And we still have that gapping. And then you have to let go of the hands because everything's moved a little bit too much this way. So, it's hard with this camera angle, first of all, just because it's on that kind of crooked line, but just by some guesswork, we can say that ball position is definitely a little bit too far back, too much forward press. That puts a lot of pressure on your body tilting, but then we lose the tilting because of that pressure by that forward bend. So I don't know how tall you are, I don't know how flexible you are, but I would definitely look into maybe getting fitted for longer clubs if possible, if you are a giant. It could just be optical illusions. If not, this it's tough. Again, the problem with these swings is, unlike other videos where you say, okay, just do this and this will happen. Yeah, I don't like doing that because I know it's not going to be the case. You might get pure luck and think you saw a tip and use it. Sorry, audio's. You might get a little. Is that better? You might get a little bit of luck and use the tip that you have seen online or on an article and think, oh, that's the tip. But was that tip really the thing that helps you, or was it just a fluke? So this isn't a tip thing. This is like education. This is what I see. This is what I see your cause and effects. You're the ones that have to kind of decide, do I need to venture down the avenue to change that? But if this was me and you're my student, first I'd make sure the clubs are at least promoting a more easier setup so you don't put pressure on yourself. Because the way you set up here, if you look at the right side of the screen, if you go to the start here, look how close the feet are. Sorry. There is the back brace line. So the center of the feet are out here. So there's just a lot of, your butt behind that centeredness. And that's going to create some issues too. So, maybe a simple fix is pull the feet back, but keep the spine angle the same, which then will allow you the spacing to get your shoulder tilt to pull your hands inside. Maybe the setup is not providing you the correct room, so you lose shoulder tilt because your hand path can't get back there. So you always want to look at setup. You want to look at ball position. A lot of these swing changes can happen gradually without you knowing it because the ball position moves, goes back and forward. Your setup, you get too close, too far away. I fall into victim. I'm a trap of this myself. All of a sudden, it gets to a point where my golf ball is so far back, I don't even recognize it, and I'm just blocking him and rope hooking. Like, what's going on? and I start looking at my swing, and then I think, "No, you dummy, look at where your ball position is," and sure enough, I put myself in camera, I'm like, "What's my ball doing way back there? No wonder I have to flip." So, you have to just be careful, and I think I've used this before where, if you look at you share a garden with your neighbor, and you're mowing your garden, and if you mow it, an inch too much one week, you don't know, an inch too much the next week, and next thing you know, you're 5 or 6 feet into the other property, and you didn't know because it's such a slow gradual change. Same thing happens in golf. We get so comfortable, "Oh, yeah, we got this," and we forget to always check out basics, ball position, alignment. Next thing you know, you start aiming a little bit right, a little bit right, a little bit right. That becomes your new norm. So you keep aiming right, keep aiming right. All of a sudden, it gets to a point where it can't survive anymore, and your whole swing just boom collapses. You start shanking, topping, and it came out of nowhere. Go back to your basics. Ball position, make sure it matches your tilting, make sure your setup is allowing you the spacing to make your moves, whatever your moves are, and then reset that way. And then if it still struggles, now all of a sudden, okay, I'm in trouble because I've gone back to my basics that worked before and it's not working. That means I did it for so long the incorrect way. I've created a new habit and I've got to unlearn that habit, whatever that habit is. So I hope that helps you. I don't know if it did, but this is all a learning experience for everybody. All right. Let's take this one out, this one out. Let's see who's next. This was Jason, so let's go back. Who's next? Robert. Robert. Okay, delete those. All right, download this one, and open this one. Okay, so we got here is Robert. Okay, let's watch Robert. I'll put him on the screen. Let's zoom in a little bit so we can see what's going on here. All right, let's read his submission. Robert, is this you? I believe so. Okay, audio's fine. Good. I thought my mic was all right. Okay, Robert, let's find your submission here. I come from an athletic background competing for Team Canada in modern pentathlon. Pentathlon. I was ranked top 100 in the world. Well, man, we're amongst the elite here. 6'3", 200 pounds, 31 years old. Been playing since January 2024. Okay, pretty new golfer. Welcome to golf as a new hobby after retirement. Lower back issues which negatively impact my ability to run. I had spinal surgery. Okay, so we got to be careful of that. Let me see. My back issue has not impacted my ability to rotate. Okay, good. But I do have some issues with loading on my left leg. I try to stay away from side bending. Okay, that makes sense. So we are going to probably expect to see or want maybe promoting a little bit steeper so we can swing more a little bit out so we don't get this exaggerated bending. Current ball flight is leaning towards the slice miss. On irons tend to hit more heel than toe. Given the amount of changes I've made in my swing over the past 6 months, I don't have enough playing history to know if this current technique is going to result in more consistency. Biggest concern are the downswing, namely keeping the face square on the downswing so I don't have to flip. Okay. All right, Robert. What is your goal? Let me just start with that. Are you looking to, become the best you can be? Are you looking to just enjoy this game with some friends and hit the ball a little bit better? Let me know because with that back issue, I'm very, very, we have to look at another way for you to hit the golf ball because if you have lower back issues and if it doesn't feel good side bending, that's going to affect your playing work. And obviously, we might have to sacrifice some plane work, add some distance, add some direction control to make you play this game longer. That's the goal. We don't want to give you a swing where all of a sudden you ruin something in your back and you're out forever. Okay, the best you can be. All right. Robert, do you currently have a handicap at all? Or are you just kind of wading in the waters of frustration that this golf game can be? All right, here we go. 10.7. Okay. So what do you think the best you can be is? Like, what is the best round you've shot in the last year, but then also the worst round you shot? And forget a year. Let's say the best round in the last month, and then the worst round in the last month. If you can just give me those. Best round in the last month, worst round in the last month. Hmm, okay. Just finish this up. So waiting looks a little bit toe heavy. Yeah, same sort of thing. Losing some posture, losing some relationship. Okay, while he writes all that down for us. Worst round last month, 18, best round plus 6. Okay, so 12 shot dispersion. Remember, handicap is 1 out of every 4 or 5 rounds. It counts. Um, so I'm assuming you probably shoot plus 12, plus 13 on average. So would you like to be able to shoot, single digits over par? Is that your goal? So you're looking at probably, you know, f 4 shots average better? And if that's the case, do you think it comes from your golf swing, or do you think you can make up that 4 rounds in another place? Better course management, better shot selection, short game management, chipping and putting. Like, where do you spend most of your time practicing? Are you a range rat? I see you indoors. Do you just hit golf balls a bunch? And then do we focus on the short game? Because short game can really help you as well. You do, because you are an athlete, you get away with a lot more than us non-athletes, and specifically at your level. I mean, to represent your country in the Olympics is pretty impressive. So you do have a lot of hand-eye coordination, rotation. I mean, you're using what you have gifted with, where most of us would love to have all this that's just gifted to us. So the problem with that is you can get away with a lot more than somebody who isn't as athletic or gifted as you. So we got to keep that in mind too. We can see right off the bat, just so and this is nothing that you have to change. I'm just trying to explain what I see going on in your swing. I would say the strongest part of my game is putting, chipping. I spent 80% of the training. Okay, perfect. Keep it like that. That's awesome. I'm a strong putter. Good. So yeah, if you keep it 80% short game, you know, I know that people want to fix their golf swing, and obviously there's that huge argument like, well, I got to hit it straight to get it close to the hole and chip and putt. But if you want to just, I would much rather have a short game that I know I can rely on, and I know I'm pretty consistently solid at, than the other way around. I'd rather, if I'm 300 yards from the green in my second shot, just get it somewhere up there in 2 more shots, and then I can trust my short game to carry me home. So, you're doing it the right way at least. Weakest part of my game, farther 150 off and have myself scramble for bogey. Okay. All right, so this is just education. I'm not sitting here telling you go and change all this stuff, but just so you know what I see, so you can kind of make your own decision at that point. So if we take a look at your setup, we can see that it's a little bit toe based, which means that a lot of the weighting is stuck in your toes. Now this will play a part because we have that hip joint we have to deal with. So I'm going to draw the hip joint in Barney purple here. You can see that hip joint is sitting back over here. That's a bad color. Let's choose green. Okay, so there's the hip joint. Is that close enough for you guys? Okay, so as we strike the golf ball, and let's do another one. Let's see what happens to your hip joint. Okay, and there's the centerness. As we strike the golf ball, watch the hip joint. Notice where the hip joint goes in, it goes closer and more in towards the golf ball. Now, that's crashing into the golf ball. When you crash into the golf ball and our weighting is stuck on the toes, there's very little you can do to keep rotating because everything is moving inward. Right? There's where the forces are crunching in and not a lot is turning. Now you try to turn, but you can see you're kind of stalling out. You're turning. You only really turn past the golf ball at this point. So from here to here, look at the hips. Now, obviously, as we transfer that energy, things stall out and slow down. But if you take a look at moving into it and then you strike it, and all of a sudden, boom, you release all that rotation. Now, when you release all that rotation, there's potential hidden storage of power, but there's also, you take a look on the way back, again, that shoulder tilting relationship, it's gonna be hard when a lot of the weighting is on the toes. So if you need to get your shoulders perpendicular to that spine angle and some weighting is stuck on the toes, as you get that tilting, you're gonna start falling more towards your toes. Now, I don't know if you do that or not, but let's take a look. So if we go to the top of the swing, we see the head moving slightly towards, but you don't do it as much, but look at that shoulder tilt. So you've lost a significant amount of shoulder tilting here, and there is the shoulder tilt. So again, the shoulder tilt is coming up. When the shoulder tilt comes up, that's gonna lower your arms. When you lower your arms, do you make up for it? Do you pick up those arms? They don't quite get to that secondary plane line based on your tilting because the whole body's moving this way. Now we have to reconnect this way if we want to remain in our spine, excuse me, in our plane work. And do we do that? No, you actually carry that extra tilting that you've gained. So if I lose tilt here, I'm carrying more tilting with the right side, and that'll get my hands to drop very quickly down below on that secondary, on that primary plane line. And look where my club is now. My club is below. Now, anytime that club is below, you're probably going to make a lot of contact before the golf ball, going into the golf ball. So you might have to make up for that somehow. And making up for that somehow, you might lose some posture sometimes. You might throw your hands a little bit to time all of this to happen. So I just see a lot of your foundation of your athletic motion from your starting point, you just lose the foundation. And the key is, that's why setup is very important because you have to work with your body to make sure that you don't lose your posture. And if you do lose your posture, how well do you recover that loss? And most of us don't play enough or practice enough to develop a good recovery. So now we're at the mercy of our recovery for that day. Some days we recover nicely and we hit the golf ball beautifully. And we think, oh, this game's not too hard after all. Next day you wake up and it's gone. And you hit it like crap. And you're like, man, I just played so well yesterday. What happened? It's your compensations. And you don't have enough to drink water, you get dehydrated, your compensation go off because you can't quite feel it the same. So your goal as a newer player is to look at your setup, look at your ball position, look at your tilting, keep things relative so you can still rotate, you can still have some weight distribution. Even the great stack and tilters, they don't load on the left side. They don't start like 60-40 and then go 80-20. They stay right there. They even have a slight subtle move weight distribution back to forward. So there is weight distribution. It's just how much of it, and it's usually setup based. So if you start with everything, forward leaning, and you got some forward pressing, your weighting's ahead of the golf ball, you are going to have to shift to line these two things up. And now all of a sudden, do you shift back to your original starting position, or do you shift like halfway back? Now all of a sudden, that's going to mess your tilting up, and then your hands have to make up for the rest of it. Let me see. What did you say? Uh, so am I losing my posture because I look at my weight on the center of my feet? Uh, I would say you lose posture. Yes. So you want to start with the weight more centered. And then you want to make sure your bend forward is going to allow you to support the tilt that is needed to keep that relationship. So this is all personal. I can't tell you what it is because you know your body limitations. You know where it doesn't feel right. I've had students when they start very bent over, they can't keep that turn and tilt relationship. So then they start standing up. So then we build their setup around where they stood up, and all of a sudden they don't have to stand up anymore, and they can produce more effective motions. Now, are we looking for picture perfect? No, because of all your injury history. So number one thing is I want to protect your body. But if you take a look at this impact position here, we got to look at, is this protecting your body right there? Okay, there's not a lot of stress going on here. I mean, you're definitely losing your angles into it, but that's allowing you not to get that exaggerated side bend. So I think your body's learning, hey, I don't want to get this exaggerated side bend, even though your whole body collapses down and you're facing back. Ideally with clubs, you don't want to be this far back unless you're on a tee. But this could be your subconscious saying, hey, I want to protect my lower back. So I need to fall back a little bit and rotate instead of swinging down and getting this side bend to drive my way through. What's the next question you had? More ground force in the left foot lost to the right foot. Yes, yes, Gregory. Right, but I can't load my left leg very well. Yeah, so then this is where, if you can't load your left leg really well, you just have to look at, okay, we need to maybe build something around you. So you the number one thing you have to look at for is three things I look at is the plane work, club face position, and then low point. Those are the three things you need to control in the golf swing. Now, does it have to be perfect plane work, perfect low point? No, but it has to be what works for you. So if you know you can't load up on the left side, that is going to affect your planes because you're going to be falling back slightly. And that's going to give you some sort of repetitive shot. Now, it could be a repetitive slice. That's just unfortunately how it is. And you can't really do anything about that until you can figure out what's going on in your body. Now, with your surgery history, I don't know if this is going to be a permanent thing for you or temporary. I don't know if you can do some physical therapy so you can load on the left side. And if that comes the time, then you have to look at more of a, look at the tilting, look at the ball position, the setup to adjust for that. So number one thing I want you to look at is find a setup where you don't have to lose tilting, because that's the big thing right now that's throwing you off. Whether that means you stand taller so you can get some of this tilting to carry over naturally, so then your plane work can develop naturally around that setup. The biggest thing I'd say, if I had to choose one thing for you, not knowing your body as much as I probably need to with the information we have, is trying to get this a little bit taller. So now all of a sudden the weighting feet are going to be more underneath, a little bit taller, which then will allow your shoulders to tilt more naturally. So if you take a look at that tilting, at least that tilting is relatively natural to that setup. So you won't be losing it, because when you start losing it, that's where the planes start to get really stuck, because now that loss of tilt here carries over down the impact, and you get too much tilt, the club comes from below, and that's where contact issues. David, oh, sorry, Daniel, tried up on your swing and improved a lot watching your vids. However, the camera angle is not ideal. I only have a try. Hey, we'll take it, man. I don't know how long you've been watching this, but there's been some funky angles here, and we've made it work. Obviously, the better angles, I can get better information to you, but we'll make whatever we work permanently. Okay, yeah, Rob, that's tough, man. This is something where, without knowing, like physically being there, asking you, does this hurt? Where does it feel? We need to build around your pain threshold, and it's just like shooting fish in a barrel. Is that the right word? Shooting fish? No, because that means I get a lot of fish. It's like shooting, what is it? Shooting a worm in the ocean. That's probably a little bit better. You need to go see somebody. You need to go see somebody that can give you the feedback, and you give them the feedback directly to help you control low point, to help you with your issues. I know that's not what you wanted to hear, or maybe it is. Maybe it is what you need to hear, so you can go get the right help. But it's just too many things that I'm not able to test physically to help you out. I can just tell you the cause and effect, so at least you know, and then you can make your best mind up there, best decision. All right, hope that helps you. Let's take a look here. Who do we have? That was, make sure I don't do this again. Okay, that was Robert. What time is it? Okay, we got time for a couple more here. All right, Benjamin. Benjamin, you on? Hopefully. Benjamin got one video. Let's take a look at Benjamin's while we upload it. There it is. All right, let's get this on one single recording. Is Benjamin in his pajamas? What is he doing? All right, let's take a look. Is this only one side? Is there a ball there? Hi, Benjamin. Okay, let's take a look. Yeah, no problem, Robert. Appreciate you. All right, Benjamin. Ask you for suggestions. I damaged my right elbow and kind of straightened my arm. When you were live and commented on what's for the Chiefs, I made this video wanting better striking distance. Is what I'm trying to improve on. If you can help, thanks. Okay. So the one problem is, so if you have a ball and no ball, you're going to get two completely different swings because there's nothing in the way. So if we were to take this gentleman and have him hit a golf ball next to it and put them two together, you see a lot of different movements going on here. But we're going to try our best, just basically what we have to work with. We're going to try and show where the ball would be and see what happens with the cause and effect. Right away, we can see maybe that ball position is a little bit too far back. So let's draw that here. Let's first of all see what happens. Yeah, so this is a good example here. So let's redraw this ball. The ball is sitting right there, right? That's a good ball. And we go down into impact. So we see where that club is moving. Let's see if we can zoom in. Right there. So it doesn't even make contact with the grass. So if there was a ball there, he would top that ball. He wouldn't even hit that ball. So and that is, a ball, he would have had to figure out a way to try and hit that ball. So probably the hands would have thrown a little bit sooner, might have lost some posture as a result to make some spacing. And there's no down the line to go with this. So it's challenging to see. But right there, we can already see, I mean, look at that club head. That club is, really close, and that's not even with a ball. So we do know that there's a lot of hand manipulation. So if we take a look and zoom out, and we start drawing some tilting going on here, we'll see that, man, that's huge. This is like Goldilocks, right? Is that too small now? We'll make it work. All right, so there's the center of his tilting, and then we'll draw the center of his chest, or the center of him right ahead. So we can see that that ball position is way too far back. Now, I know for the iron, you want to have a little bit of forward press in relation to that ball. But right now, assuming we don't even turn and tilt, the bottom of this circle for his tilting is there, and the bottom of his centerness is there. It's way ahead of the golf ball. So that's how we match up, so we get it to the center of him, and we match up the tilting. That's still a little bit too much forward press. Let's say we don't get it in time. Look at how much of that forward press is going to be carried over at impact. So spin loft you can get away with, which means you have adequate enough club head speed to take advantage of spin loft, and that's what like model lines does. But if you don't have adequate speed, and model lines is just an athlete. Maybe he's just a pure athlete. So kudos to him to be able to hit the golf ball like that. But most of us can't because we don't have that club head speed to carry those angles down. So we start to see as he strikes that golf ball, we still move. Now look at this. Look at the center has moved even more. So let's draw Barney purple because that's the center. So now the center has moved even more, and our tilting has tilted even more. So that's where we would have struck the golf ball. So now our tilting's even more ahead. So look how far back that golf ball is related to the centerness, which is where he makes contact, and then the centerness of your tilting. It's way too far ahead. So we have to engage hands. And I know that when you engage hands, for a fact, you have to create some room, because if you don't create the room, as I release, my club is going to get longer sooner. So it's going to strike the ground, typically be way behind the golf ball, unless I get my centerness well ahead of my golf ball, which he does here. So now we know, okay, we get our centerness ahead, which allows him to throw his hands, but still we have to make some room, because if he doesn't and he remains in his posture, he's going to go straight to the ground. He's going to break a shaft, break a wrist, break a finger. It's not going to feel very good. And we know this right here. Look at that right hand. Right hand is just completely flicking through. And that's without a golf ball. Imagine with a golf ball. So that's where, number one is you got to get that ball position more connected to you. Don't play so far back. There's no reason to steal forward pressing. I don't know if you were trying to do that intentionally, but your forward pressing is related to the center of you and also where the tilting is. They should be relatively close. The tilting should be a little bit more than the fore press, excuse me, than the centeredness of view. So if we were to do this again, just so you guys know, so let's say this is where his natural tilting is, and that's the centeredness of that tilt, and then there's the centeredness of him. So that ball should be right about there. So at least we're closing that gap. And then you might think about, okay, well, maybe that's too much tilt. So let me reduce that tilt, and then we'd have to put the ball a little bit more over here, but make sure that centeredness moves with that ball, and then also flatten out the shoulder tilt so it's not as much, so we can get these two to be a little bit closer. The closer you can get these, and they're never going to be perfect, but the closer you can get these, now all of a sudden you can sequence correctly. Because if you sequence correctly, left hip goes, right shoulder dips down to keep you balanced. And what does that do? Get that from natural fork press. You don't have to like push out in front and then throw your hands. So I think you definitely look at the your starting point to help you out, and then try and send us one where you hit a golf ball from face on and down the line. But I hope that helps you, Benjamin. Is this you, Benjamin Six, that you just jump in? Happy Independence Day to you too, brother. If that is you, Six, I just wound you up. Nah, yeah, that's don't clip me on that one. I just I just wound it up on you. That's even worse. Don't clip that one either. I just finished your golf swing. So go look at the replay. If you need more help, just let me know in the comments. All right, we got time for one more. Let's delete this. All right. You know, I haven't even had a beer or anything today. All right, Kyle. Let's download these. Okay, we got these two coming in. Here comes Kyle. 1 and 2. All right, double the fun. Okay, let's do this first so I don't have to mess around with it. Oh, I don't know. I thought they were synced. All right, let's sync them up real quick. I'll play it while I go over his notes so you guys can watch and get an idea of his swing. It looks like somewhere in California. There's right at impact. That's a good one. And right at impact. Maybe one more. That's close enough. Close enough for you know. Okay, let's read his stuff. All right, Kyle. No, not me. Just running the coach. Okay, thanks, Six. Appreciate you. Happy 4th, US. And again, happy 4th, US. You got it. You know, I'm so proud to be in America. You know, when I came here, my family gave up everything to come to this country, and man, I'm so grateful for all the opportunities I've had here. Okay, Kyle, long-time listener, first-time caller. That's from Howard Stern, isn't it? I've been playing off and on for 30 years. This past year, I picked it back up now and play 3 times a week. I've been getting online lessons through Swing Tweaks app. Man, I thought it said Swing Twerk. I started looking for lessons due to lower back pains. My misses are usually right with the driver. If I change grips to strong grip, I miss it left. The face on view was a straight shot. Down on line view was one fairway to the right. And that sums up my driver game. All right. Pretty simple. Let's zoom in so we can see. Okay, so we got some alignment issues already. We can see that, which causes a little bit steepness. Body's doing pretty decent. Ball position's a little bit too far back based on that setup and tilt. No forward lean. We don't need one with a driver. Okay, so this one's definitely, a lot of this is setup based. And he seems like a pretty good athlete. He's making it work. And I can see where the left come in for sure. And I can see where the right come in for sure. So that path left is playing havoc with you. That ball position is playing havoc with you. So ball position right now is creating the path left because we're opening up. And secondly, when you open up to that ball position, Now impact becomes a timing game, so it's all about club face relationship to the path. If you have a path that's always left, your club face plays a huge part in the curvature of that path. So I can see why banana balls happen a lot and the pulls, because if you square to that the club path, you're just pulling it left and you probably hit it pretty hard, and then you get the having camp special. So this one should be a fairly quick one to diagnose. But let's do this real quick here. And remember, this is just pure education. I'm not here trying to say fix this and fix that. I always give you my opinion at the very end. My students, what I would do, but that still doesn't it's not close because you have to be in person. Can you guys see that red? Let's do a yellow there. You guys see that? Hopefully. Alright. So we see a lot of forward and roll, definitely on the toes a lot. You mean the shoulders are wide open, so definitely wanna get that shoulder to be more level to your alignment. Okay, you compensate pretty good though. You pull the hands inside so they don't go up that alignment. Okay, looks pretty good there, but watch this right here. Yeah. The motion itself is good, but it's just a little steep. I mean, I don't mind steep, but steep and ball position is what's killing you. So right at impact, we take a look at the left side of the screen. We look at the centeredness of you. I mean, it's at the golf ball, maybe even ahead of the golf ball. You don't really want that. That's a good iron position to be in. But right here, it's just, that club face is not, it's playing catch up. Your hands have to catch up at some point. And you still got this forward press. And you look at the left arm pulls aside. You release it decently there. I would say, this definitely is candidate for an overhaul of Alex. Iron Club Steep. Is this you? Oh, Kyle. Well, is this Kyle? Alex, are you talking about Kyle or are you talking about you? So you take a look here. And I know I tell you not to emulate people, but you need to go and watch. Just watch, what's his name? John Rahm setup. So take a look at that shaft angle, right? So that shaft angle is pointing down. We got a spine angle that is pointing up. Let me see. Don't wanna make this too confusing with so many lines. Let's go Barney purple. So we got a spine angle that's pointing slightly up. So we have to find a way to get that club shaft to match that spine angle at impact in order to swing up. Upward strike with a driver, can reduce backspin, get your launch angle acclimated so you're not increasing a lot of backspin. Anytime you have backspin or spin axis, if that spin axis is pointed sideways, that's where the curvature occurs. But it doesn't necessarily spin left or right, even though that's what it reads out on datametric launch monitors. There is no spin left or right. It's basically just where the club takes off on its axis. So if you have straight backspin, it's going to take off here. But if the ball leaves the club face on this axis and it's spinning on that axis, that's where the curvature comes in. So we need to look at your axis of your spinning and how do we resolve that. So that will require a lot of flipping to hit the golf ball or falling back. So I've seen two compensations. I've seen one where the hands flip to get that shaft to point up at impact, or number two, they fall back and carry that angle more up. But then you have to hold your angles, and it requires a lot of turning and tilting and a lot of manipulation. Most of us don't have that. I mean, that's reserved for a couple of people out there. But here, we can't fall back, so we get our body over, and now all of a sudden the hands are like, "Oh, I better get that club to try and get that loft somehow," and we start to throw. So there's that throwing action. See the left arm's kind of pulling up to try and create the room for the right hand to throw a little bit, and then all of a sudden, it's just a game of timing. I think this is a great swing for what it is. I mean, I think there's a lot of good things that you do. One thing I would just, encourage you to do is look at the shoulders. I mean, you definitely want to get these shoulders more back, right shoulder more back to help you. Next thing you want to do is to compensate that, you're tilting, you just got to try and align it with the golf ball a little bit closer. So if this was your true tilting, you can see where that golf ball would need to actually be struck decently. That's way out off your left foot. There's no way because to hit that, I mean, you're gonna be you thought you hit it right now, you're gonna be hitting it 50 yards more right than that because now your path is only gonna be even further left, and then you will open up to get to that golf ball position. So I think what you need to do is just, re-envision your setup and disregard yourself. So if this was me looking at you, if you came back and looked something like this, so we're gonna draw like your hands here, gonna draw your spine angle here, so it's more backward leaning, right? So now your spine angle is backward leaning, and guess where the club's gonna be? Club head's gonna be right here. Guess where the ball's gonna be? Ball's gonna be right there. And then you're waiting, obviously this upper body's gonna be falling back slightly, so it's gonna put a little bit more weight on this right side. So you might feel like it's, 60% right side, 40% left side. But now, man, you're ready to go. It's like Minecraft because everything is pointing up. So now guess what you can do? You can sequence correctly and everything will just match up a little bit easier. Give yourself a little bit easier of a time to strike that golf ball. We only got 1 second to hit this golf ball. And if you start in a position where you have to undo these positions in 1 second, then you gotta have some really good timing to pull it off. And most of you do, to a limit, to a point of how much that compensation binds you to your current state. So if you have somebody with a lot of compensations and they say, "I just can't get over that hump. I'm not stuck at a 12 handicap." Well, it's probably because your compensations have bound you so much that the best you can do with that compensation is get to a 12. There's no way to get any higher because you've reached your ceiling. In order to get higher, you gotta change what you give yourself to allow you to get to the next level, which means less compensations, less moving around. So that's my philosophy, and it's worked pretty well when I've dealt with students long term. And long term, I'm talking about kids that have been with me for I had a kid, who started with me at 6 years old, just sent me their college graduation. You know, "Thank you for all your help in my upbringing." But it's just, these are long-term kids that I know their swing. They're now adults now. Some adults that I've worked with that come down in the wintertime, 5, 6 years, and it's funny. They leave, and they come back with their old swing. It's like, "Well, what happened?" It's because they don't take lessons for 5 or 6 months, and they come and it just goes back to what your DNA is. So it's constant monitoring. Kyle, I hope that helps you, man. I'm not here to, burst any bubbles, but I think you can change a lot just by your setup. But it can either do 2 things. It can either just free you up and all of a sudden you go, "Oh my god, it just feels so much better," or it could open Pandora's box. And again, this swing that you have now is surviving because of that old setup. So if you change your new setup and you still got these old neurological moves in you that don't get ingrained right away, it could create some more issues. So just to give you a little heads up, it's not gonna be like me sprinkling fairy dust on you and you're gonna be bombing it. It could, but the odds are is it's not gonna be that easy, but do it slowly. Don't shock the system. Maybe take it back a little bit, half an inch every week or so until you find that little area that you can work with. But all right, hope that helps you. All right, I gotta get going. I'm way too long on this stream. Appreciate you guys. I will see you throughout the whole week. No problem, Kyle. Appreciate that. We see missed live view, Jason. I'm 5'11", 230, so nothing. Okay. Clubs fitted, but you are correct about setup and how I have to move my way tomorrow. Appreciate it. Okay, you got it, Jason. No problem. Hope that helps you. Let me know if you need any extra help. You can always, we're just in the videos, but appreciate you guys' support. I got to get out of here. I'm late for some sort of show. Other than that, Bears and Greens. Take care.